Good morning. We're going to continue the chapter on parenting, applying lessons learned in the past. Being raised without the support and guidance of two parents often causes a child to learn how to survive on his or her own. At times, those lessons prove invaluable, and some men and women reach adulthood convinced that the lessons they learned as a result of trauma are lessons worth passing on to their own children. Often these lessons have to do with the value of independence, self-reliance, and truthfulness. When her father committed suicide, Sally was left with a series of puzzling questions as to why this man she had loved so well had chosen to leave her behind. Although she rationally knew that she was in no way the cause of her father's death, she often wondered if perhaps something she had done or said had displeased him so that he chose to take his own life. As a mother, Sally is firmly convinced that children need accurate information. They should never be allowed to guess how an adult is feeling or what he or she is thinking. Consequently, Sally takes great care to inform her children of why she is doing what she is doing. If she is angry or irritable, she tells them why, so they are not left to guess and perhaps inaccurately conclude that their mother's mood is their responsibility. Oh my goodness, there come the babies again. Maybe somebody came down a little early. Beat the family trip. Oh my goodness. I see deer, I forget everything. Let's see, where was I? And consequently, Sally takes great care to inform her children of why she is doing what she is doing. If she is angry or irritable, she tells them why, so they are not left to guess and perhaps inaccurately conclude that their mother's mood is their responsibility. Keith, on the other hand, considers himself a self-educated man. He grew up with little parental guidance, and when his father died, when Keith was only 12, any chance for a strong father disappeared. Keith educated himself by reading and gaining as much life experience as he possibly could. When he had two sons of his own, Keith was determined that they would grow to be independent young men. After a bitter divorce, excuse me, Keith became the sole parent for his two young sons. He was more determined than ever that they should grow up confident in their own ability to care for themselves. Keith often thought, if I can just get these boys to age 16, then they won't need me, and they'll be okay. He consciously taught his sons to cook, to sew, to box, to defend themselves, and to be young men who could survive in the world. Excuse me. Having grown up as an only child, Keith was well aware of the need for a trusted companion. Consequently, he encouraged his sons to become friends and supports for one another. He repeatedly told them, "Depend on each other, don't depend on me," and gave them opportunities to enjoy each other's company and to develop a brotherly bond. When his sons were teenagers, Keith decided to send them to boarding school. It was hard for him because he enjoyed being a parent and he greatly missed his sons when they were gone. However, he was convinced that the best lesson he could give his boys was to teach them how to survive on their own. He wanted his sons to love him, but he did not want them to feel dependent on their only parent. Throughout their childhood and adolescence, Keith provided his sons with a variety of experiences that many would label storybook adventures. There's deer crashing through the woods over there. I can hear them, but I can't see them, so. Okay. Storybook adventures. They climbed mountains, camped in the wilderness, and rode rapids in a canoe. He wanted them to learn to take risks, but not to be foolhardy. He himself had engaged in dangerous and risky behavior as an adolescent because he had no one to guide him or to set limits on his behavior. Keith was determined that his sons would learn the difference between a reasonable risk and dangerous behavior. In remembering his own childhood, Keith assessed what skills had allowed him to survive in circumstances that might have destroyed others. He wanted to teach his own sons those same skills and provide them with rich experiences so that if fate chose to be unkind to them, they would not be unprepared. Although not well parented themselves, these individuals are behaving as supportive parents. They are taking the experiences of their own childhood and using those experiences to evolve a set of principles that now guide their own parenting. They are not trying to compensate for what they did not get. Rather, they are trying to share those lessons of childhood that were so valuable in their own stories of survival. Sam, who grew up watching his mother abuse her younger children, struggled throughout his adolescence with questions of good and evil. He needed a moral code to help guide his own decision-making and to free himself from the guilt and blame for the terrible abuse he was forced to witness. Sam is convinced that the moral education he gave himself saved him from going insane in a confusing and unreal household. As a parent, Sam has been careful to provide moral guidance for his sons. He does so in a gentle and thoughtful way by telling his sons stories at night that contain some moral or message. Sam is a creative storyteller. In some of the parables he writes himself. Others he has culled from his own vast knowledge of world religion and folklore. Sam is convinced that with a strong sense of right and wrong, his sons will not feel lost when they have to make important decisions. Despite their desire to prepare their children for eventual independence, Each of the parents who sought to teach important lessons was aware that an untimely death could derail the best made plans. Each imagined a particular age at which a child could survive without their parental guidance. If I can just get my son to age 12 or my daughter to age 14, then I know they will be all right. The age chosen was always 3 or 4 years older than they themselves had been when death took a parent away. Not surprisingly, survivors of early loss always felt their parent had died too soon, whether the death had occurred when they were 6 or 16, and they imagined that just a few more years that they now wanted. Let me try that one more time. Not surprisingly, survivors of early loss always felt their parent had died too soon, whether the death had occurred when they were 6 or 16, and they imagined that just a few more years would have made a big difference. It was these few more years that they now wanted for their own children. And the last section here is parenting and personal repair. For some individuals, the act of becoming a parent represents the final stage in completing their own healing from their own early loss of a parent. As one man said, "What was broken was made whole again." The father-son relationship was restored, and now I was the father, and I knew I could do it this time. For this man, years of being inappropriately thrust into an adult role as a child left him feeling inadequate and fraudulent. Finally becoming a father allowed him to feel like a competent man and to put aside forever the image of the irresponsible boy. When my son was born, I thought, "You brought him into the world, now you take care of him." That saved my life. I finally grew up. Others find in the role of parent an opportunity to give and receive an ambivalent love, an opportunity that had not been present since death intruded on their lives years ago. Jenny, in particular, felt as if she had closed down after her father's death. Love had been put away and stored in some inaccessible place. After her father died suddenly, Jenny knew that she would need to love again in order to become a whole person. And although she felt partially healed in her decision to marry and to make a commitment to her husband, she felt more fully repaired after she became a mother. Being a mother is learning to expand love. It was a risk I needed to take. I created a family and created a space for myself. For others, having children is more than just being a parent. It is creating a family, creating a warm, loving space in which growth and development can occur. When Jonah's mother died, he lost not only his supportive parent, he lost all semblance of happy family life. Excuse me, let me get a drink here. Even though I do have red hair, I do not like red cedar. I'm parking next to the water, having it in my face. I apologize for all my noises. Okay, let's go back here. For others, having children is more than just being a parent. It is creating a family, creating a warm, loving space in which growth and development can occur. When Jonah's mother died, he lost not only his supportive parent, he lost all semblance of happy family life. Jonah was determined that in his own marriage and fatherhood, he would once again enjoy the comforts of a home. After his mother's death, Jonah's family home became a place from which he and his sister wanted only to escape. In his marriage, Jonah created a home where people wanted to come, an open, warm environment where his sons and daughters entertained their friends comfortably and with ease. Being a father has been an incredible joy. I have been able to watch someone else's growth and take pleasure in that. Joy left Jonah's life with his mother's death, and for him the creation of a family in which joy was a welcomed guest marked an act of genuine healing from the pain and despair of his own early loss. The task of parenting children seems enormous for all of us. How do you love without smothering? How do you guide without controlling? How do you discipline without abusing? Is it ever really possible to see this person, who is in many ways a replication of yourself, as a separate and unique individual? The struggles of raising the next generation are the struggles of the human race. They become even more complicated when a mother or father has lost a parent in childhood. That person brings to motherhood or fatherhood not only the usual expectations, dreams, and fears, but also a host of fantasies born from the experiences of an orphaned child. Despite the difficulties they face, children who lose parents can become adults who raise healthy and successful sons and daughters. I know this firsthand. My own mother lost her father when she was only 7. She was raised by her immigrant mother, who loved her dearly, but who relied on my mother for support and companionship. Although she married early, my mother came to motherhood late. I think she felt she was not quite cut out for motherhood, yet she raised 3 daughters with love and courage. I know there were times when she looked at us and remembered her own childhood. I think she felt cheated, but that never stopped her from giving us all she could. There were times when I could feel her fears about being abandoned again. They were so ever present that I sometimes imagined them to be my own. Her anxieties did not stop her from encouraging our independence. She watched with pride as each of us left home to attend college and find our own place in the world. Having lost a father may have made it harder for my mother to be a parent, but it certainly did not make it impossible. 3 healthy and loving daughters are proof enough. And that is the end of chapter 7, titled Parenting, from the book The Loss That Is Forever: The Lifelong Impact of the Early Death of a Mother or Father, by Maxine Harris, PhD. Thank you for catching the sunrise with me, and I appreciate you listening and watching.